Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss, the Dragon of the Southern Tier, and I am here with you today with Reverend Chittams. We are at CPAC, and we are having an exceptional time. We've been having many conversations, and I know we've had quite a conversation off air, privately, and I wanted to share some of that information, some of the great developments that are going on with the audience, because you are a wealth of information. But before we do that, let me ask you first, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Well, again, Reverend Ralph J. Chittams Sr. I am a full-time resident of the swamp. I live in Washington, D.C., about a 5-minute drive from the U.S. Capitol. So there are people who actually do live with the alligators, and I'm one of them. I am a Republican. I've been one since 1988. I spent 4 years as the first vice chairman of the D.C. Republican Party. And I live, like I said, in deep blue D.C. And in 2018, I actually ran for office in D.C. as a Republican for a at-large seat on the D.C. Council, which is akin to a state legislative position.
That's impressive. That is a resume you don't often get to hear. And obviously, one of the first questions that has to be asked, I know I get asked all the time because I am a Republican as well, I'm a conservative, and I ran for Congress. So I know you have to get this question a lot as well. You're black, you're a Republican, what happened?
Well, when it came time for me to register to vote initially at 18, you do what most children do. I registered as a Democrat. Why? Because my family was Democrats. They were all Democrats. Well, 10 years later, I look up and I realize the Democrat Party is now advocating things that I am diametrically opposed to. So I had my own walkaway moment. I realized that the Democrat Party had walked away from me. So all I did was file the divorce papers.
That's a good thing.
And I left the Democrat Party after 10 years back in 1988, and I have been a Republican ever since.
Well, that's often what I hear from many people who are black Republicans. We start off, a lot of us, with the traditional, we're a Democrat, and then realize, wait a minute, they're not really doing anything that's advancing this.
Absolutely.
And it's a very common theme I get to hear. Because of what you've done, and because of the things you've done in your life, let me ask you, how are you finding it when you speak to other friends of yours, others who are still Democrats, people of color or otherwise?
Well, there are really two Democrat parties. There are those who are completely lockstep in to the Democrat Party power structure elite. And in some ways, those people are just lost. You're not going to be able to reach them. But the larger number of people understand that every urban area in America that has been run by Democrats since the 1960s is awful. The schools are bad, crime is bad, the quality of life is bad, and they understand this.
Right.
And people are people. We all want the same things. We want our children to go to good schools. We want our children to be safe. We want our seniors to be able to age in place in the homes where they raised us in safety. Most people want the government out of their business.
As much as possible.
Most people want to keep as much money as they earned for themselves.
Even more possible, yes.
Right. So what I found is when you talk to people about issues, and you can, for a moment, put the party aside. Because for now, honestly, it's not even about party. Right now, it's about Trump. And what I tell people is, look, you all need to understand, I was a Republican when Trump was still a Democrat. My being a Republican has nothing to do with the resident of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, whether it's Donald Trump, George Bush, H.W. Bush, or any other Republican. I became a Republican because of values and principles. And then if you can get people to move to that conversation, that's a conversation that people will understand, and they will say, you know what? You're making some good points here. You're making some sense. But we have to get away from the cult of personality and get people willing to talk about issues.
Speaking of issues, and I know we've talked about many issues off air, and I want to share some of them with. Let's start with, if you could name the top 3 issues that you'd want to address that hopefully CPAC or many of the political leaders and pundits can bring out to the nation overall, what would those 3 be?
I think the first issue would probably take care of almost all of the other issues.
Okay.
If we brought true civics classes back to our educational system, where people understood the Constitution, they understood the rights as illuminated in the Constitution, if they understood the foundation of their rights, if they understood the Federalist Papers, then we would not have to argue about things like infanticide.
No.
We would not have to argue about the Second Amendment. We would not have to argue about religious liberty. The reasons why we're having these discussions now is because we are now on our 3rd generation of miseducated and uneducated people that I think has been done on purpose because they don't even understand. I take exception with one of the statements that our president makes all the time. Mm-hmm. He says, "Make America great again."
Yes.
Well, that's wrong.
Always.
America has always been great. Mm-hmm. There has never been a time in American history when America was not great. However, America has never been perfect.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
You don't have to be perfect in order to be great. So yes, so we have the stain that for purposes of representation, African slaves were counted as three-fifths of a person.
Yes.
That's an imperfection. But that doesn't change the fact that we have a document, our foundation document, which states that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator. That is a perfect document.
Human rights.
Imperfect men implemented that perfect document imperfectly.
Imperfectly.
Okay?
Yes.
But that doesn't change the fact that America has always been great. We've led World War II. We've been at the forefront of liberty and freedom around the world since our inception. America has always been great. Mm-hmm. Our challenge now is to keep that greatness, but to move America ever more towards perfection. Understanding that perfection is never going to be attainable.
No.
But it should always be something to be strived for.
Oh, absolutely. And as human beings, we always have to be reminded of that sometimes, I think. That, no, it's never going to be perfect because we aren't perfect.
Exactly.
And we keep forgetting that, well, the system isn't exactly perfectly. With the social justice warriors, what do they always say? Oh, we need an absolutely just system. We're human beings.
Right.
There's never going to be that.
That's beyond our capacity.
But we have
always strive to be. We should strive to be better tomorrow than we are today, and then the next day strive to be better, and then the next, and that's the same sort of striving that we need to do as a country.
Now, as a community, looking at the involvement of people of color in the Republican Party, obviously, it's one of the things that many of us are trying to get more of or speak about, to take away that surprise or stigma, some may say. I know that's something that you've also been working on.
Absolutely. Well, I mentioned I ran for office in 2018.
Right.
And after the election cycle, what you normally do is you get together with a group of people from around the country, like other candidates, and you debrief.
Right.
And so in the debriefing, we all started saying the same thing. If you're running for mayor, alderman, council member, school board, sheriff, whatever, you get no help from the RNC. You get very little, if no help, from your state party. And your local party is usually completely broke and busted, so they don't have any money to help you either. So we formed Urban Red as a SuperPAC. And Urban Red is, our goal is to find, for this election cycle, 25 down-ballot candidates throughout America in urban centers, and to help train those candidates into building their campaign structures properly, because there is a science to campaigning.
Oh, yes.
And so, but we want to find candidates who have already established themselves in their own local communities. Mm-hmm. People who they'll say, well, I know Bill. Yeah, Bill's that Republican guy, but anytime there's something that needs to be done in this community, you can count on Bill to roll up his sleeves and get into the fight. Because Republicans, conservatives, we're not going to win with carpetbagger candidates.
No.
We are only going to win with candidates who have street cred in their own communities. And so Urban Red is going to come in. We're going to help find those candidates, help them build up their campaigns, get proper people in place, and then we want to be able at the back end to provide independent expenditure help with ad buys and get out the vote, because it's those candidates that affect people's lives on a daily basis more than any president, mm-hmm. state senator, or U.S. congressman. So our focus is down ballot candidates, mayor, like I said, aldermen, school board, and if any of your viewers know conservative candidates in their local community that are looking to run, have them reach out to Urban Red. We're on the web, urbanred.org. Urbanred.org is easy to find us. We're on Facebook at UrbRed, and we will gladly speak to any conservative who is thinking about running to help give them some guidance. And if they do run, and if they do have the correct conservative worldview and bona fides, Urban Red may just step in and help with their campaigns.
Well, I know, as the saying goes, all government is local.
Yes.
It always starts in the local. And, there's a lot of people who don't have that infrastructure. They have been told or taught, whether it's the local party or the state party, that just doesn't have the time or doesn't have the resources to necessarily train each and every local down ballot candidate. So this is a great service to allow people to move up and to strengthen themselves if they're doing the work already.
Right.
So that's an important thing to note. You've got to be doing the work. No one's going to do it for you.
We're not going to come in and create you. Our job is, after you've created yourself, we can then come in and assist. And so, of course, with this, and with everything political, fundraising is one of the main things that I'm here to do at CPAC. And and if people are interested and they find value in what we're doing, again, go to the website, make a donation, however small, however big.
It all adds up.
But we need to also understand that we're trying to change urban America from blue to purple to red. This is not going to be something that happens overnight. This is going to be an incremental change. It may take 2 or 3 election cycles to get a conservative elected. But if we don't start now, we will never get one elected.
If we don't talk about the issues, we don't explain why they're important, why they're fundamental and human rights that are inalienable. Key word there, inalienable. No one ever really says that anymore. If we don't explain that, these younger generations aren't going to hear it. They're not going to learn it.
Well, and that's why they're not teaching it.
Yeah.
It's, and it's like people now believe that we get our rights from government. No. The rights that we have been given to us by God, and it's the government's responsibility to ensure that those God-given rights are not infringed upon. So the government doesn't give them to us. The government's job is to protect what God has given to us.
Right. Let me ask, and I know we don't have too much more time. I don't want to take you away from the impact you're having here, and I know it's been sizable. You're always in a conversation, which is great.
Yes.
And I do appreciate the time that you've been able to give to us to hear more about this. So 2 questions. One, how has the response been in your conversations here at CPAC? How is it being received? And the other thing I would ask is, are there any states or cities that you've already isolated with Urban Red that may be a highlight that we can look forward to seeing something happening there?
Well, the response to Urban Red has been 100% positive. I mean, literally, everybody with whom I communicate and engage and explain, they go, it's about time. because they've seen the structural inequity in how the Republican Party supports its down ballot, what I call the farm team. And for now, we have identified 4 mayoral races around the country that we are preparing to go in and provide assistance to. Now, what we don't do is we're not going to get into primaries.
Right.
So we're not going to get involved if there's one Republican going against another Republican in a primary. Our job is going to step in once that has been settled.
Right.
And if the candidate that has emerged is a proper conservative candidate, then we'll step in. So we have identified 4 cities so far with the potential for us to go in. So I can't say because
well, there's a lot of reasons,
right? Because
and we're early in the season.
We're early in the season, and we don't want to, pick a side and then alienate some people.
Right.
But literally already there are 4 solid conservative candidates that have been brought to our attention that are running for mayor. There are some solid conservative candidates running for, in Virginia, they're called supervisors.
Oh, yes.
Like for local county legislative boards, they're called supervisors. And 3 or 4 people have been presented to us who are running for supervisor positions in Virginia. And I can say that the people that we're looking at, we have literally gone across the country from here in Washington, D.C., all the way to California. So we will probably reach our goal of 25, and all we need to do now is just raise enough funds so that we can provide all those candidates the support that we want.
Let me say once again, remember to say the ways people can contact you. I want to make sure they hear it twice here. So let's get that again. And then I always like to end any interview, whenever possible, with a final thought. We've talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that we have missed? Any other final thought that you would want to share with our listeners here that I may not have been thinking about asking?
Yeah, well, again, please go to the website. It's urbanred.org, urban.org. There you can read more about the organization. You can make your donation through the website. And then talk to your friends. The biggest thing that we need to do as conservatives is not be afraid to engage. We have a winning message. We have the winning message.
I think so, yes.
What we bring to America is a way for America to survive and to thrive. During the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin walked out of the room and he was asked, what do we have? And his response was, we have a republic if you can keep it. And we need to understand that it's our job as Americans to ensure that we maintain the republic.
Oh, absolutely. And don't get me started with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the Democratic Socialist, or socialism at all. It's a long story, and we will have that conversation.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I will watch you after CPAC, maybe in a month or so. I want to get back with you and have that conversation, as well as to follow up with all the developments with the 25 people that you're targeting. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation. But again, I want to say, Reverend, thank you for your time today.
I thank you.
And I'm looking forward to learning more about what's going to be happening just down the road.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.